In today's video, we are going to be painting this winter scene. I like the nostalgic feel of this. I actually sketched this out about a year ago, and I just ran out of time and never got to do it, but I really wanted to do this one, so I thought we would paint this together. My supplies today, I'm using the Langton paper. I did get this in a scrawler box back in 2020, and I've used it once before. I did like it, so I figured, you know what, we're going to give this a try again. It is cold press, 140 pound, 300 GSM, and I'm going to be using some salt, Dr. Page Martin's Bleed Proof White. The line work is available for you. You can find it in the post on Patreon to download and use whatever part of it you want, or you could just, sketch it out yourself if you want to sketch it. This isn't one that's too difficult. And we're just using 5 colors today, and these are in the Daniel Smith line, and I have Indian Red, Sepia, Neutral Tint, Phthalo Blue Red Shade, and some Sap Green. You can use similar colors if you don't have the Daniel Smith. Just use what you have. You could also do this in a Goethite. You could, if you have that. That was originally I wrote Goethite here because that was my original idea, was to do it in those kind of muted tones. I'm thinking more like Norman Rockwell feel of this. This is an old time. This boy's just gone out to get the family Christmas tree, and the trees are going to be very much in the distance. So we're going to do those kind of out of focus a bit. And of course, the focus is our subject right here. It's going to be snowing, so we're going to add some snow, and we're going to do some effects with the salt to kind of help bring out that snow in the in our background, in our sky. It's going to be very easy to put this down here, and we're just going to kind of let the sky happen. We're going to go wet and wet. And then we'll let it dry, and we're going to work on our foreground here and get the look of our snow. So we'll probably do the snow when we do our sky and let everything dry. We may even throw our trees in wet and wet in the background. Then that will have to dry. We'll get rid of the salt, and we'll come in with our foreground. So we're going to do this in a couple steps. First thing we need to do is get the line work transferred to our paper. If you don't have your image down yet, take this time, pause your video, and let's go ahead and transfer our image. So you will see in your line work that I've only included the basic, like with these dashes and the darker lines. That's all I put on my paper, and I show you that because this was definitely coming out very dark. This is a newer piece of graphite paper, and when I first did the hat, and I was not pressing very hard at all, that came out quite dark, and I was like, oh, I don't want it to be that dark. So you'll see here that I just did a few dashes and a few of the lines to kind of let me know where exactly the Christmas tree was going to show up on the sled. But again, I wanted this to come out very natural when I painted it with the watercolor. Okay, I've laid my horizon. It kind of falls right there in between his mittens, and that is a little hard to see. There we go. This is aquarellable, so I'm not too worried, and I think I'm going to go over some of my lines and just kind of see if I can't get them to lighten up a little. And if not, it may just have a little bit of a line and wash feel to it, but that's okay. I'm going to get my colors activated, and we're going to get started painting on that. We'll do our background first. I'm going to tape this down to one of my small boards. Okay, so I've activated my colors. They are wet and getting all ready to go. And I will say that I grabbed my black acid-free tape. One thing I don't like about this tape, it sticks very well. I got it on Amazon, but it's really hard to see when you're laying it down. I wanted the border to be the same size all the way around. So I went ahead and grabbed my other roll of acid-free tape, also on Amazon. I'll link them both below for you. And in fact, I will have links to everything in the description. But I put that down and made sure that if this comes out beautiful and I want to go ahead and put it in a frame, I wanted to be able to mat this to a 5x7. So I made sure that my design is well within, you know, if that's a 5-inch size, is it going to stay, or excuse me, it's 5 inches this way. It will be within the 5-inch, and of course my design is well within that 7, so I'll be able to move that around and kind of put it exactly where I want it compositionally in my mat. So having that all set up, I'm going to be using my Mimic brushes today in a size 12 and size 6 round. These are definitely pretty affordable brushes, and these are at Jerry's. They're also available on Amazon. I'm going to put the Amazon link below. And yeah, I definitely recommend these brushes. I do like them. So those are the two I'm going to be using today. And let's go ahead and get started. To start off, I'm going to wet the background of my sky, and I'm going to avoid the boy. All right, I'm going to take a little bit of my Phthalo blue, and I'm going to mix that with a little neutral tint. And I'm just going to really going to give me my feeling of my storm clouds, right? Because it's going to be snowing. And I think I want it a little bit more gray than that. Of course, I'm going to have my trees over here, so I'm going to lift some of this out. Just grabbing a tissue and kind of dabbing here, because I know my trees are going to come in here. I want this to dry for a minute because I want my salt to work and be small, make small crystals. If I do it right now when it's really wet, it's going to be large spots. But if I wait till this gets a little more dull, you see the sheen that's on there. I'll show you, there's a good reflection when it hits that light. As this sets, I will show you the sheen again right when I put the salt on. We definitely want to let this dry in a little bit before we add our salt. So the other thing that I can do is just take some clean water and come in here where our snow is going to be. And yes, I know this is going to run, and that's okay. We don't mind. Again, I'm going to avoid our subject. My brush has some of that on there. That's okay. And I'm just going to move from left to right. And doing this is going to end up giving us some color into our snow that's on the ground. Again, just kind of painting the water around my subject. If I touch in here, I'm going to get a little bit of that color bleeding down. And it's going to help take away that hard line where the sky meets the snow. And I'm going to wet all the way down to the bottom. We have these areas of snow here. I just picked up a little bit of that color, and I'm going to drop it in underneath where the sled is. Because we're going to want some darker values there. It's under the sled. And just taking a little bit of this gray that's left on my palette. And I kind of drop just a little bit here and there. Just kind of blending that through. Again, a little bit of that gray. Dropping in, because I don't want my snow to all look the same color. You can see it's very light. We definitely know it is snow. And now if we look, see, I'm not picking up, see how it's very much dulled. If you look at, it's too bright to even pick up how bright this is because it's very wet. So it's just washing it out. But up here, we no longer have that. It's gone dull, but it is still wet. So now we want to get our salt on. I'm going to put a little bit of salt in my hand. I have just a little. And I'm going to put it between my two fingers. And I am just going to rub back and forth because I want those granules to be kind of small. And you can see that when you drop them on here, you're going to get, you almost see like I have dark speckles that are going to start forming. Just very little bit. And I'm going to let that sit and see how that does. And when we do the white at the end, it'll kind of come on top of that. So you'll have some that'll look like blurry distant snowflakes and some that look like the snow falling right here in our foreground. Next thing I want to do is I want to do these trees. Now this is already dried where this is not going to spread a lot. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take Sap Green and I'm going to add a neutral tint to kind of darken that up and mute it down even more than it is. And you'll see if I come in here to do a tree, you're going to see, I'm just going to leave this one on here for a minute so that you can see that's not going to spread and kind of dilute the way that I want it to. So this needs to be a little bit wet. So I'm going to rinse my brush out. So I think to start, what we're going to do is I'm just going to give it a spritz. I'm just going to give this corner of my paper a little spritz. And you see how that's moving. For these trees, I think I'm going to come in with my number 6 round. And I'm going to turn this slightly. It's just going to come in here. Yeah, see, now I want to get that kind of diffused tree look that I want. You see I kind of focus on the tops, making sure it looks like a top of a tree, just with a little line and little lines coming off the sides. But beyond that, I'm just kind of tapping out. I shouldn't have a problem putting my tree in here. This is pretty dry for it not to move. I'm going to turn it like this because it's easier for me to do trees upright. So even though my tree is laying on the sled, I'm going to remember that, as I'm bringing these in. This side's going to be more flat. But this side would not be as flat. If you've ever cut down a real Christmas tree, when you lay it down, those branches are still very much going to stick. They'll lay somewhat because of the weight of the branch, but that's it. So the bottom will lay flatter. The trunk will not lay completely flat like on the ground. You'll have bulk there. But these branches still very much stick up. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my sepia, a little bit of water in that, and a touch of my Indian red. And when I look at the toboggan, like this is part of the rail, but under here, this right here is like the trunk of our tree. But when you cut a tree, that's very much white in the center. I'm just going to put the kind of the rim of that there. Right? So the center of it would still very much be pretty much white. It's like a very pale, almost a very pale yellow. So here I just have where my lines are. You see, I'm going to put a few, this is just a guide for me. Like there's where the trunk of my tree is going to be, which you might see some of it through the branches, but you're not going to see a lot. And I did put some guides for like where branches would go. So again, just putting a little bit of this in, but you're not going to see it. We're going to go right into my sap green. I'm going to start just tapping, because some of these where it's out at the edge, you're going to see, like you might see the individual needles of the branches. As it gets closer into the tree, you're not going to see that so much. And I'm definitely okay leaving white space. In fact, it's going to be best if you do. So just the very tip, very tip of my brush is all I'm using. And I'm just kind of focusing on like the branches that are hanging off the edge of the sled. The point of my tree, the tip of my tree, I actually want to be kind of up here. I'm picturing it like it's leaning downward. And this would still very much be just like as if it were standing. You see, when I tip it, it's kind of going to come down off my sleigh. And if I find that I need it to go a little bit further, well, I can just come up here, make it curve a bit more. And what I just painted will kind of disappear into the tree. So you can adjust it. Again, just using the very, very tip of this brush. This is the number 6 round. It holds very nice point. I do like these brushes. There we go. Now when I turn it sideways, our tree's starting to take shape. Now the bottom of my tree, like we're going to see that some of its trunk here, and it has branches that come off of that. And you do see that at the bottom. You actually see that branch come up. All right, rinse that out. So this is very much wet on dry that we're painting this. All right, so again, at the bottom, and these on the bottom, they're kind of like leggy. You see like individual branches. This part has been standing and hasn't gotten a lot of sunlight. So it's going to have like fewer, they're going to be a little more spaced. Okay. And it's going to round upward. Because again, it's laying on its side. So gravity is going to try to pull those branches like around. But this bottom is a little, we'll see through the bottom part a little bit more than we would as it works its way up. Every year we'll take our tree once we're done, and we'll take it. I'm going to turn this a little bit more because I want to make sure I start curving my branches to follow that like curve around. We'll take that tree and put it outside, and you can put you can do all kinds of things. Actually, you can take some of the branches and you can put like peanut butter and seed in some of those branches. So it's kind of like a suet. We'll take ours that goes out every year so that the birds can use it. We'll stick it kind of in the snow, not necessarily standing straight up, but we'll just stick it out in the snow. It ends up tipping over, whatever. It gets more snow on it, of course. But the birds will use it to shelter in throughout the rest of winter. And then at the end of the season, once all the snow melts away and there's the tree again, we actually will take that, when it's all dried out. And that will be the first fire to usually like around Memorial Weekend. And that'll be like the first fire to kick off summer. So the tree's all dry. The birds have gotten all of their use out of it. And yeah, that's what we do. That's what we do with our Christmas trees when they're done. I'm liking that. What do you think? I think he's picked a great tree. That is going to stand up and be nice and full. And again, that's just working with the very tip of your brush. So I'll bring that up for you so you guys can see. Look at that. Loving it. I'm just going to take a little bit of the dark color and put it underneath on the bottom. I'm definitely liking the, oops, I did not take the water out of my brush. I want to take the water out of my brush because if it's wet, it's just going to dilute this. And I don't want to dilute it. I want this darker color. I'm going to turn this again. Sorry if that bothers you guys. And just going to put some darker values, especially in this underside. I am really liking that tree so far. I hope you guys are too. There. You can see I just tapped that in. So kind of where you'd see the branches starting to come off of just this bottom part where you see the trunk. Up here, you're not going to see that as much. And if it bleeds up there, that's okay. We're going to paint his hat blue. Too much. I want to suck up some of that paint. Right, I had too much on my brush. So I'm just pulling that back off with the dry brush. And now I'm going to come in, drop a little bit of this in here. right? And I can see those lines, and I don't like that. Definitely going to come in with a little bit darker. And the flaps of his hat, I'm going to make those a little bit more grayed out. A little bit more into the top there too. All right, I'm just going to kind of leave that. We'll see how that starts drying. I may lift out a little bit of color through the right through here. There we go. So I'm just kind of lining it out right now around his sleeve, around where the rope goes. And I did not grab a color for the rope. I'll have to grab some sort of yellow or maybe burnt sienna. You see, I'm just kind of like pulling in like where some folds of the fabric from his coat would be. Under his collar, going around his mittens. Again, just catching the line where that rope is. There's his other sleeve. Now I'm just going to dip my brush in some water. So I've diluted what's on my brush, dipping it again, just kind of tapping, not rubbing it off, setting that there. So now when I come back, I should have a lighter value. It's quite wet. And this is actually almost looking like a purple, like a, looks like a muted plum type. Either way, I like it. It's fine. I wanted muted colors. Making sure not to paint over my rope. I'm going to come back with some more blue and do another layer on the top part, just the top part of my hat. His mittens are going to be blue too, but I'm not going to do too much on the mittens yet. While this blue is on my brush, I can come in here. Being careful not to touch his jacket too much. Now this leg coming forward, if this leg is closer to us or further away, depends on is this over top. But the way that I had drawn it out, I believe my intent was that this leg is the closer to us stepping forward. So we're going to want to drop in a little bit of darker color back here. So far, I am really liking the way that this is coming out. I hope that you are too. So let's come back over here while we let these dry in a little bit. Let's come back over here and we're going to work on our sleigh. Now the way that this is working, my rope, this rope actually comes back here. This rope that comes forward, I've kind of painted it in a little bit. We'll fix that as we go. We're running through the snow. And if we are running through the snow, we might want to blaze a trail behind us, right? Like where those other ones would be. We're leaving kind of a trail behind us, and I'm actually going to lighten that just a bit. I don't want it to be as dark as the actual runners, right? This is the snow. Lift that just a little bit. And I can come up around, like I can even take some of this out, like so it looks kind of broken up. I can do that when I add the Dr. P.H. Martins and brighten up some of this, I can add some snow through here where it makes it look like it's kind of deep. I need to be able to put that rope in, and I can touch up my trees with the colors if I need to. And this is one of the Primatech colors. If you don't have this, yellow ochre is fine, right? You can use a yellow ochre. Let me show you that color. See, it's going to be very, I'm not going to get a whole lot of the color in there. I just want something that is going to look kind of like a natural rope, like a rope color, which could even be lighter than this. Yeah, I think I'm going to come very diluted with this. I get a lot of that water out of my brush. Let's see. Very diluted. Yep, that's what I'm going to use for his face. Put that on, and of course it'll be darker. I'm pulling the color down so that my darkest value in the neck. I'm going to take just a little bit of my Indian red, just a little, blend that in. Let that set for a minute, and I'm going to pull that out. I'm not going to leave that full strength on there. There we go. So you see I just lifted a lot of that right out with my brush. And I'm going to take just a little bit of that Indian red. Make sure I've actually touched it. In his cheek, for his nose. Right, it's cold. He's going to be rosy. It is cold out there. The snow is falling. And I do not have to be, just taking that neutral tint, I do not have to be perfect with the face. I just have to imply, right? There's his eye. I want his nose. It's going to be to the front here. Just like rosy, and some rosy cheeks. And I'm just going to darken up underneath his jawline. And that's it. I don't have to paint anything specific. See, your imagination is going to do the rest. He doesn't have to be perfect. I don't have to be able to paint a perfect face with perfect features. The viewer's imagination is going to take care of it for you and fill in the blanks. So don't get overly worked up on having to deal with that face. And then we're going to be splattering snow on top of this. So even that, again, don't let that bother you. I'm going to darken up some of these rails to the back. All right, and he's going to need his boots. His boots go right into the snow. His boots are definitely like they've sunk into the snow. The snow is deep. He's trekking. And if that's the case, the other thing that I'm not seeing here that we would see is that he would leave. He's trekking through the snow. Trust me, he's leaving some footprints. And all I'm doing is putting this down because it's a little too dark, just lifting it right back off after. And now we got some footprints trekking through the snow. Oh, we got to paint his mittens. All right, I think we're going to put a little bit of snow on the brim there, so I'm not going to worry about how that looks. But I think we get to touch up our trees with background and let it all dry and put our snow on. But there we go. How do you like it so far? Let's work on those trees. Yeah, I'm just going to leave those be. So I want to go ahead and let this dry now. In fact, I'll probably hit it with a drying tool. And I will mix up some bleed-proof white that is of splattering consistency. And we will come back and splatter. I'm going to get rid of the salt too that was on the paper. So I'm going to do that, dry this, and we'll come back with the bleed-proof white and do our last final touches. So this is all dry now, and you see on the salt, it really didn't, I waited too long. I didn't get the effects that I was really looking for, but that's okay. It's just going to blend in with our background and kind of disappear. So now let's make it snow. I took the Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White and mixed that. You see that consistency is almost like milk. And I am going to make a mess. I'm going to grab a little bit of paper towel there because I know it's going to get messy, folks. A little bit of that in my number 6 round brush. I end up with speckles like, oh yeah, I am getting them just everywhere. Oh yeah, everything is getting speckled white. Everything. What's the fun with this? I'm gonna do a little white getting up here, like snow starting to stick on his hat. I'll have it on my sweater. I'm gonna have white speckles in my hair, my desk. You can't see it, but it is just covered. Ah, the joy. I will be washing this up for weeks. But there we go. Okay, he is. I've even got it on my monitor. It's always fun. It comes out beautiful. I love it. This is the price we pay. It's messy. That's all right. And now it's time for everybody's favorite part, the tape peel. So satisfying. So satisfying. I love doing this piece. This was a lot of fun. It just is a scene that has a very nostalgic feel to me. And if you haven't yet, please do consider subscribing to the channel. It is free. If you've enjoyed this one, just perhaps hit that like button. We greatly appreciate it. And if you are a patron or a member here on YouTube of the creator level or above, you can watch this in the full version in real time, either here on YouTube or over on Patreon. So definitely, if something you would like to see and paint this with me in real time, you can certainly sign up for those if you're not already a member and join me. Also, if you paint this, I would love to see your work. Please do share it and tag me. I'd love to see how it all turns out for you. I will have the line art available for free. You can get this by clicking the link in the description below, and it will take you over to my Patreon. Here, I'm just doing some last little touches with the snow and neatening everything up. This was a lot of fun. I actually painted this for last winter. It was a patron exclusive video at that time, and I thought that I would share it with all of you, albeit a sped up version, this year, so that you might consider this would be a great Christmas card. If you have a Christmas card to make for someone special, you might consider giving this one a try. So let's peel that final piece of tape, can we? And get a better look at our card. A little bit of my paper did pull. I didn't heat this up with a heat tool. I definitely recommend, if it's been on your paper for any length of time, heat that up. It'll come off more cleanly. And it's time to sign the card. And I do sign. This one was not a card, but you could certainly paint it as a card. It is an appropriate size. But I also sign them. Sometimes I sign my cards on the back, sometimes right on the artwork. If it was a card like this, I would sign it right on the front. But there we are. What do you think? Drop me a comment. Let me know. Did you enjoy this one? I'm going to pop another video up right here that you might like to watch next. And I will see you in a video real soon. Until next time, my friends, keep creating and happy holiday season.